So good morning, hello everyone, good afternoon. I'm Amalraj. Like said, I am joined by my colleagues Marcus and Robert, and we are from EMEA Data Modernise Specialist team. So let us start with our presentation. So just to give you an idea about what we are going to cover today, we will have a brief overview about how does the migration to Exadata Database Service on dedicated infrastructure looks like. And then of course, we will also have a look at the zero downtime migration, and then followed by we will have a real demo. And of course, at the end, we will have a dedicated Q&A sessions. You can ask your queries in that session, or maybe you can also type in the queries now, for which our panelists will be able to answer it now. So you might have heard, okay, it is Exadata Cloud is not, not a new term, okay. So this is the complete database service available now. Why? Because if you look at the left-hand side, it has all the database innovations, which is more than 40 plus years of innovations from Oracle. All of that, along with that, more than a decade of innovations on the Exadata side. All of these combined together, we are getting in the Exadata Cloud. And in terms of deployment, if you look at, we have the Exadata database services in the public cloud as well as in the customer data center. So for today, we will be focusing on Exadata database service on dedicated infrastructure, especially the migration to the ExaDBD. Now, when you think about the migration solutions for database migration solution to ExaDBD, or in general, there are a lot of solutions available, like OCA database migration service, which is a native service within the cloud. Then we have data guard, data pump. So many solutions are there in today, and we will be in specific focusing on the ZDM, which is zero downtime migration. But before that, okay, we should be able to understand the migration from two main terms, which is physical migration and logical migration. Because for any database migration, once you understand this particular terminology or what does it mean, then it is much easier for you to take the decisions on taking which particular solution you should adopt or which method you should adopt. So let me explain this one. Imagine you have a text doc, okay, text.doc in your computer, and you want to, you copy it to your target, which is another hard disk or maybe a different machine. This is exactly what is a physical migration. You copy the entire contents, okay, block by block or entire file as such, and then you moved it to a different target. In the same way, how does logical migration happens? Okay, again, we have the same text document, but instead of copying the entire document, you only copy the contents, which may be a control C, and then you control V or just paste it into the target. So here, as you can see, we haven't physically moved the files, whereas we have logically extracted the contents, and then we were able to put it into the target. And also you can notice that in the source, we have a separate file format, which is .doc, whereas in the target, it is .txt. So this is also another important thing about logical migration. Of course, it will make much more sense when I explain it for the database. So now let us have a look at how does it happens in terms of the database. So again, imagine you have a database on x86 Linux, same like the one we are going to see now. And then you want to copy the files. Maybe you can do a copy using the operating system commands, okay? Or of course, okay, the RMAN backups, and then which again does physical block by block copy, and then you put it onto the target. So this is the physical migration for the database. Of course, there are restrictions, okay, DNS, all those things. I'm not getting into the details. But in a similar way, the same DB, if you want to logically migrate, instead of copying the files, either using operating system or RMAN, you take a logical export using an EXPDB. And then you move the dump file to the target, and then of course you import it there. Here I have shown autonomous, but of course the target can be even ExaDBD. So once you understand the difference, okay, like this, then it is much more easier, like I said, right, to understand any migration. So I hope you got an idea of a brief idea about what it is. Now when you consider the migration solutions for ExaDBD, okay, the one in the middle, okay, one thing we need to notice, it's not just one kind of migration. Both of the migrations, like logical and physical, is possible, and of course that depends on the scenario. Okay, so now all these things are better, easier said, okay, than done. I know migration is not like, okay, we can start one day and then finish it on the same day. You have to do a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, okay, and you have to of course execute it maybe multiple times, and then of course you do the validation. So to make all these things simple, you can log on to this particular URL. There are a lot of tools available for you to help with the planning and preparation. For example, okay, you're coming from a specific platform, say for example AX, and you want to come to ExaDBD, and you want to explore, okay, how should we approach, okay, what are the migration methods available. So all of different tools, especially the Cloud Migration Advisor, if you input, okay, the certain details to it, it'll give you what is a recommended method and how much is the complexity. So it is very easy. You don't have to know, I mean, crack your head, okay, thinking which is the best method. We have the solutions for you, we have the tools for you. So certainly recommended to visit this particular URL and then get your migration queries, okay, how you can easily with comfortably approach the migration. But for today, of course, we cannot focus on all of that, all of the migration tools today. But for today, like I said, we will focus on zero downtime migration and see. First, we will see what it is, and then of course, have a demo on that. So basically, this is a software or a binary which Oracle has developed a couple of years back, and it acts as a migration orchestrator. When I say migration orchestrator, it's not a new technology for like data pump or RMAN. It utilizes these technologies, okay, and it relieves you from manually executing the commands, which otherwise you would have to manually do. So it does all those things for you. And then of course you can customize the workflows. You can of course pause the migration and resume it. So all of the capabilities it has. Now what does it support? It supports all the databases from 11 to 21C, and it supports standard edition, enterprise edition. It can support databases coming from AX, Solaris, of course Linux is there, and then Amazon RDS. And the supported targets, it supports autonomous database, also the ExaDBD and Oracle base also. So almost whatever is there in the OCI. And basically, again, for the ZDM, okay, once you understood what is physical, what is logical, the same methodology or the same concept applies for ZDM also, because ZDM has to categorize the migrations either into physical or offline, physical or logical. So for a physical offline, the ZDM takes the backup, an RMAN backup, and it puts into the backup location, and then from there, it can restore to the target. The same way for physical online, it also takes a backup and it restores, but then it can keep the source and target in sync by using the Oracle Data Guard. So all of these things, setting up the Data Guard, taking backup, restore, keeping it in sync, everything is done by a ZDM. Similarly, for logical migration, okay, the tool is data pump. Of course, you take a data, you in the sense that the ZDM takes a data pump export and it keeps it in a location. Okay, that is optional again, and then it can import into the target. For logical online, in addition to the data pump, of course, data pump can be only found only if you are using data pump. It will be purely an offline one because we cannot have the incrementals using data pump. That's why to keep the source and target ready after the initial load is done, we can of course use the Golden Gate. So once you set up ZDM and the Golden Gate microservice, rest all things have been taken care by ZDM, like setting up a extract, setting up a replicate, keeping the source and target in sync, and of course if you want to switch over to the target. So all of those things will be taken care by ZDM. So that's it. We will again be more focused. For today, we will be focusing on ZDM, physical online migration. Okay. And this is the use case that we are going to see today. So if you look at the first diagram on the top, we have a 19.16 or 16, okay, database release updates with that release update running on a compute on a particular tenancy. And then we also have target. Okay, we want to migrate that into a target, which is in ExaDBD, of course, which is 19.16. And then when we are using ZDM physical online, of course, it will be setting up a data guard. And then using ZDM, we can even reverse the roles. When I say reverse the roles, at the end of the migration, your target will become primary and your source will become the standby. So all of these things we are going to see. So this is, for example, you are already on a CDB, but for example, take another use case, which of course we are not going to do today, which is in the bottom. If your source is a non-CDB, and in the target you want to convert it into PDB, of course ZDM can help you. So the initial thing is it will create a target CDB. It will restore everything, but at the end of restoration, it can again then create a new DB and plug in this whatever restored DB as a PDB over there. Of course, this will add to an additional downtime, but then you don't have to worry about plugging in and copying the files on your own. Everything will be taken care by ZDM. So that said, I think you probably you should have got some idea about what is physical, what is logical, and then where we are coming now. So we are going to use physical online, and it is before getting started, it is better to see what all things we are going to cover. So of course, when you are planning for a migration, you already have a source. Okay, that is why you want to migrate it to cloud. So the source provisioning or whatever related to source, okay, we assume that source is there. And then the next step is, of course, you need to provision a target database. When I say provision the target database, this is not the final database which is migrated. This is an initial placeholder database, okay, which you want, okay, which will ultimately become the final database. So whatever parameters that you want to set for your final database, you can set it here. Like I said, it is just a placeholder, but original data, the actual data will be coming from the source. And then of course, we are using zero downtime migration, and then we need to have a ZDM host running, which should have, which has the ZDM software and ZDM service up and running. So once that is done, okay, then we have to prepare the source and prepare the target. So this is not too different from the way you prepare your source and target for data guard. Okay, if you want to manually set up a data guard, okay, of course you have to do something, you have to check some things, and then you set up. But then this is only the checks has to be done manually. Rest setting up the data guard and everything will be taken care by ZDM. And then to keep the backup, we have to actually configure in the sense it is just creating a bucket. Okay, nothing big there, just creating a bucket. And then of course, the user that you are going to use for your cloud, just create an auth token. And then finally, migrate the database. So all of this exercise is going to take almost 3 hours. So for today's session, I'll be focusing on some of these things are already been done. Okay, because some of these things are very easy. And of course, I'll tell you where you can refer it. And the important key points which you need to keep in mind, I will be covering. And of course, I will be also initiating a migration. And that is going to take 30 minutes. Again, we will not be having the whole time. So whatever is a completed migration, I will open it and show you face by face, okay, what happens over there. So that said, I think we are good. Okay, we will jump into the console in a bit. But before that, the first task is, of course, we need to create a target, which is an empty in the sense a placeholder target. So for the target creation, we need to have few things ready. For example, okay, if your source is on AX, the physical online migration that we are going to cover today will not help. So of course, it should be on Linux x86. And then the DB name of the source, which you need to take care, which you need to get from the source, because we have to use the same DB name in the target. And of course, it should be an enterprise edition, and character set is required because the target is going to have the same character set. In terms of the encryption algorithm, it is better to keep a note, okay, or check it, because you might have set certain parameters in the SQLnet, because that is to meet certain business requirements. And if you want to have the same things met in the target, you might have to tweak a little bit, because OCA has its own set of parameters. So for that reason, just keep watch on this, keep a note of what is there in your SQLnet.ora. And then of course, inventory output, I'll tell you why it is required. So once these things are ready, the next step is we want to create an image. So why we are creating an image is, by default, if your source is on 19.16 And if you want to spin up a target with the 19.16, it is easy. You come to the cloud and then you create a database home or create a database directly. You can directly select 19.16. But what if you have one-off patches installed in your source? So those one-off patches won't be by default there in the 19.16 image that OCA has. That is why it is always recommended to create a custom image where you can have your one-off patches ready, and then you make a custom image for you, and then from there you create your database. So all these things, okay, we will see it in the console. So let me go to the console now. So I hope you can see the console. So we are in the we are in my tenancy, okay, and then I am in a specific place where I can create the images. Of course, this is you can navigate either go to Oracle based database, okay, when I click it, or you can also go to your what you say, the VM, okay, Exadata, and from there, if you come to on the left-hand side database software images, then you get this page. You click on the create database software image, and you give it a name, and then select the compartment. Of course, I'm not creating it for Exadata database, and you select for Exadata, and then this version, and then here is what I was telling. You can actually specify the one-off patch numbers so that when it creates an image, okay, you are actually matching the exact home, which is in the source. So either you can give it here, or maybe you can also upload the Oracle inventory here so that it gets also one-off patches. And of course, if you want, you can create a tag and then click on this, create software image. It will be, creation will be done. So we are not going to click on that. Like I said, this is going to take, for my dummy DB, it is going to take 3 hours. Of course, the actual migration will vary depending on a lot of factors. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to create the image. It has already been created. This is the image I created. And the next step is we want to create a database. So of course, you can go to the Exadata VM cluster and then come to the left-hand side to the this section where you can see databases homes, and then click on create database. Here we have to give the same DB name which we have captured from the source, because DB name should be same. And of course, you have to give a different DB unique name compared to the source. And then select 19C. Here, if you had have created a home from your custom image, you can select that home, but I am directly jumping in. Okay, I am creating the home also in the create database. Give it a name which you can identify. And when you want to select the image, here is where you come and select, okay, give me, use this specific custom image where I have my one-off patches there. So once you select it, okay, of course, let me select it, and then you can give the sys password, and then don't enable the backups, because until the migration is done, there is no point in enabling the backups, which is not in a consistent state, because it's going to be get overwritten. And more importantly, here you can give a specific SID. Of course, this should be something unique on your Exadata VM cluster. And then you have to select the same character set and national character set as your source DB. So once this is done, you can click on create database. Of course, that is going to take some time. So in the interest of time, I have already created my DB, which is ORCL as the DB name and ORCL underscore CCC as my DB unique name. So this is done now. Now let us go back to our slide deck. So we are done with our target database provision. The next thing is we have to have a ZDM host running. So ideally this should be on a separate VM or a separate server on your on-premise. It is very easy to create a VM in the cloud. So once you have it, either you can have it in Linux, Oracle Linux 7, or maybe Linux 8, then give it some space in the root, install some specific packages for the ZDM, and create a user and group. And then of course you can download the ZDM and upload it there and then install it. So all of these things are really easy. Okay, again, like I said, it is going to take time, but it will not add much value if you consider the actual migration. Okay, much value in the sense these are simple things, so I don't want to spend out of my 30-40 minutes, right, spend maybe 10 minutes over here. But then I don't want to leave you totally in the dark also, because sometimes, okay, so best thing is I'll show you a place. Okay, go to Google and then type Oracle Live Labs, and then click on the Live Labs home, and you can type ZDM, Zero Downtime Migration, or just a keyword ZDM. It will open up what all Live Labs it is there for ZDM. So for example, you can use the the one which, if you can see the cursor, okay, physical online migration with a backup location. This is what exactly we are going to use it today, the same methods. Or if you don't want to keep the backup in a location, you can also use the direct migration. So click on this one, the third one, and click on start. And then whatever we are discussing here, okay, everything, okay, the flow exactly shown here. For example, if you don't want to use your source database, you can actually provision it on the OCI. And how to provision the target. Of course, this is more based on Oracle based database, but I had shown you the difference for ExaDBD. The next thing what I was telling is how to provision and configure a ZDM host. So if you expand the task, where you should go to clicking, okay, where you should go and click on creating a compute instance, okay, and what image you can select it, and how you can actually increase the file system, all of these things, what packages you need to install, with all the screenshots, everything is there. So it is very easy. Like I said, this is already there, but you can go and have a look at there. So this is one place. Of course, the better place or the best place always is the documentation, because documentation might be keep updating. Of course, we are also updating this one, but documentation likes the actual complete reference. Okay, so that said, we assume, or we have already done creation of ZDM service host for this particular session. But then there are a few key points. Okay, so let me, before jumping back to this slide deck, let me go to the service host. So I have created a ZDM, okay, host, and then few key points I want to give is, one thing is you should update your etc host. Of course, this is there in the documentation and everywhere, but instead of showing the actual etc host, I am showing a dummy etc host. So there will be some OCA specific entries in your compute. I haven't included it here, so let it be there. Do not change anything over there. These are the additional entries. Of course, this is my ZDM service host name, and that entry will be already there. If not, you can add it. I had seen it's there. And this is then your source DB. Okay, source DB IP address. Sorry, I think it has gone to. Yeah, so source DB IP address, and then source DB FQDN and alias. And then, of course, the IP address of your, of course, if your, all of these things will be in a private subnet, because that is a recommended practice. So these will be private IPs. Okay, so you need to have the communication between, okay, your on-premise to the ExaDBD using a VPN or a fast connect, so that you can reach the Exadata VM cluster private IPs. So these are the private IPs and FQDN, internal FQDN, and then the alias. So this alias is the host name of the VM node 1 and VM node 2. So this is important, okay? Without this, ZDM cannot communicate. Why this is important? ZDM communicates with the source and target using SSH on port 22. So we need to have these entries, and of course you need to open the port 22 on your source, okay, for the specific IP which is coming from the ZDM service host, also for the target. Okay, so that said, let us come back to slide. The next thing is, we need to prepare the source database. So of course there are a lot of things you can see in the screen. Don't try to read all those things and get yourself into a difficult situation. Okay, but then all of these things I'll show in the console. Basically, the compatible parameter values should match on the source and target. So if you had followed the best recommendation, you shouldn't be having any problem. For example, even if you are on 19.16, the recommendation is you should not change your compatible based on the release updates. So if you had kept it as 19.0.0, that is fine. Otherwise, of course, to match it, you cannot, of course, change the source, because source might be a production database. So of course, you have to change it in the target. And then SP file should be in use. Of course, for the data guard, you need the archelog, so it should be in archelog mode. And one important thing is how to configure the TD wallet. So please remember, you don't have to encrypt your source databases, okay, source table spaces, but you have to create a TD wallet. It is just the wallet which will be copied as part of the migration. And then, of course, you need to have SQL connectivity between source and target. When I say SQL connectivity, on the listener port of the target, source should be able to communicate. And of course, from vice versa, if you want to have, of course, the reverse way, okay, from target to source, you should be able to reach. And then a couple of other things, everything is very well there in the documentation, okay? And more importantly, you should ensure that you have a system time of your source, target, everything is in sync. And if you already have existing backups, you should let it continue, because those backups are important for you in terms of your RTO and RPO. So for just for migration, you don't want to compromise your own RTO, RPO. But at the same time, if it is conflicting with no, the ZDM backups, you have to know a little bit be mindful. So then the next one is, of course, the similar way we also have to prepare the target database, okay, like the compatible. And then second important thing is the time zone on the target should be actually same or higher than the source. If it is not there, of course, you will have to update it. And then on your targets between Exadata nodes, okay, there should be an SSH connectivity for the Oracle user. And the timing I mentioned, the system time, the operating system time should be matching. And then SQL connectivity, of course, SP file, other things. And again, you don't have to worry about the TD wallet because by default it will be configured for Exadata DBs. But then, of course, you can have a check. So all these things, ZDM does a check. Okay, if you forget, of course, ZDM will not proceed. I am not telling once all is ZDM doesn't do all of these checks. This is to make your migration smooth, because if it is not there, ZDM is going to complain. Okay, no, I cannot proceed with migration. This is not done, please take care. So instead of that one, we are taking care and then starting. That's it. And then of course you need enough space. Okay, based on your source database size, you of course need enough space in your data disk group in the target, which is of course data in the Exadata. Now these things, okay, it looks a little bit confusing. So let me at least show you, okay, a little bit of this, okay, in the while getting into the putty. Okay, so let me bring up two screens. So on the left hand side, I have the source. I am connected to my source DB. On the right hand side, I am connected to my Exadata DB. Now let me see where I am. Okay, okay, good. So let me start a particular SQL. For example, let me also see where am I here. Okay. Okay, and start. Okay, now whatever we discussed the prerequisite side, let's see one by one. Okay, so the DB name, okay, it's ORCL. Same here. And DB unique name is ORCL in the source, but in the target it is like ORCL underscore CCC. Okay, the source is in archelog mode, same as for the target. And SP file is in use. Of course, the target also has SP file. Compatible parameter is 19.0.0, and it is the same with the target. And character set, of course, it is like this on the source, and okay, and the character set is the same in the target. And the time zone version is 32, and again it is matching on the target. Database TD wallet is auto login, everything is auto login, and then open, and then of course the TD wallet is auto login in the target also. And the timing that you can see, it is actually matching. It is there is a slight difference, of course, that the way I entered it is a little bit, there is a seconds of delay. So this way you can double check it. Okay, and then now we are good actually. So once that is done, of course, we need to configure the object storage and auth token. So first of all, we need to create a bucket, okay, in wherever, okay, whatever tenancy you are using. It can be, okay, for me, I have created in a source tenancy, but of course your source might be on premises. So in that case, wherever is your Exadata, there we create a bucket. And then of course we need to have an auth token over there. So let me get into the console once again. Okay, so I am in the console. Okay, this is a different tenancy compared to the Exadata. And then if you go to your storage, you can see, you can select a compartment, and then of course you'll be, select your specific compartment, and then you will be able to see the bucket there. Okay, so your bucket is here. The bucket that we are going to use is this one. And you also have to create a auth token for whatever user you have logged in. So you can go to the auth tokens, and then you can generate an auth token. So while you generate, give it a description, and then you click on generate auth token. You have to keep it in a safe place, because once it has shown, it will not be shown again. So you don't have to create separate auth tokens for separate migrations. of course it will be okay. You have to create only once, and the same can be used for multiple migrations. Okay, so now let us come back to our slide. So we are now ready with source. We are now ready with the target and also with our bucket. Next, we are okay. We are ready to start with our demo. But then before that, I think I wanted to show you one more thing. Okay, which let me go back to the source and target. More important thing about is okay. You have how does your etc host looks like. So instead of showing the actual etc host, I am showing a temporary etc host, a dummy one. So of course you should have your source DB. Okay, details over here. This is my source DB on the left hand side. You should have your ExaCS VM node 1 IP address updated, ExaCS VM node 2 updated, and of course we need to have the scan name of the ExaCS. So why the scan name is important? Because the source will communicate with the target using the scan IP. So you have to specify the scan name and the IP over there. And in the similar way, if you go to the target, I'll just show you the dummy etc host there. The target should be able to communicate with the source, okay, on the specific IP. And if your source has scan IPs, of course that should be here. For me, it is on a compute. Okay, it doesn't have GA grid infrastructure, and it is running on the same IP of the private IP. The listener is running on the same private IP. So you should be able to now target should be able to communicate the source on that IP. So now I think we had now discussed about whatever is required in terms of ZDM, in terms of the source database, in terms of the target database. Everything has been discussed, and we are ready to start with the demo. So let me go back to the etc our ZDM service host. So we are in the service host. The next step is we want to have a response file created. Okay, because ZDM needs a response file where you specify certain parameters, and then you that will be used by ZDM when you actually execute the command. So let me go to a dummy response file. So in this dummy response file, of course, you have to specify, this is the correct one, okay? You have to specify the DB name and what is the migration method we are going to use, and what is the data transfer medium, and then what is the host. Of course, how to prepare this host name. It is there in the live labs. You can go to the live labs and you will come to know how this can be prepared. This is actually your storage namespace. Okay, how to get this, everything is clearly documented and also there in the live labs. And this is the bucket name. And then of course the respective of your VM cluster name. This is common for everyone who are going to the ExaCS, and then after the migration, do you want to shut down your source? So I have specified as true. So once this response file is created, the next step is you have to create a command for executing the migration, which is, let me open the dummy one. Okay, yeah. So basically you have to specify a command like this. Okay, it will be running from your ZDM home bin. Okay, and then you have to specify the source SID. Okay, this is for a database which doesn't have GA. If it is with the grid infrastructure, of course, there is a different flag over here, or different flag you can use it. And then source node authentication. There are different authentication methods in ZDM. I'll not get into the details. Okay, for this particular one, I am using ZDM AUTH. But then in your source, if you don't have a user like OPC, or if you want to use directly the Oracle user in your source, okay, you don't want to go to a initial user and then from sudo to Oracle. Of course, you can use a different authentication called DB user. And then I have the private key file. Okay, when I say the private key file, this is the key file which you can use while using SSH to get into the machine. And then the target node. Okay, this is a dummy name I have given. And then the actual username, okay, which you logged into the cloud, because this is the backup user. When I say the backup user, this is nothing related to an Oracle database user and an operating system user. This is the user on the cloud under which you have created the bucket. And for that user, you have created the auth token. and then of course the response file, and then the authentication for the target. So for the ZDM, for this particular ExaDBD, of course, we are going to use a user called OPC, and then we will be using ZDM AUTH, and of course, a private key to access the ExaCS or ExaDBD. And when you have this command prepared, okay, of course, the dummy commands or this kind of commands are there in the live lab, so it shouldn't be a problem for you to get started on that. Once you have it ready, the first thing is you start with an evaluation. When I say evaluation, it only does a dry run. It doesn't actually performs the any kind of what you say actual migration, but it does couple of checks, okay, and that it goes through certain phases, and then it ensures that okay, at least most of the things that you need is done, okay, and then you can use the same command to start an actual migration. So for example, now let me try to initiate a migration now. So I'll use this one, ZDM Physical Online CCC. So it will ask my password. And this is the sys password. The next one is I need to give my password of the user, the auth token, okay? Not the actual password, it is the auth token of the user, of the cloud user. So let me give that. So once it is done, okay, so I think there is already something is already going on. Okay, so that's why it is, that's when it couldn't start. So let me see what is being migrated over there. Okay, maybe my previous migration is still running. So let me get a command, okay, to see what migration is currently running and what phase it is. So this is the command that you can use, okay, if you want to monitor a particular job. So I'll see what is the job running currently. Okay, it has been succeeded. Let me see anything else is running. So this is actually an evaluation command. Okay, this is what I was telling. Initially, you will run an evaluation, a dry run. It has these checks. Of course, it has taken 4 minutes and 42 seconds. So once all of these things are passed, okay, then you can proceed with the actual migrations. For example, everything has been passed, and then I can proceed with an actual migration. But if any of these things have been failed, of course, you can then go to a detailed log file like this. Okay, I'll again open it for the actual migration, and whether it has the more details and where it has failed. So now let me see whether there are any more jobs running. Okay, so maybe one of the previous migration, right? It is, I need to find out the job ID. It has been, it is still running. I might have to kill it and then start one. So for the interest of time, like I said, even if I initiate it now, it is going to take 30 minutes. So what I'm going to show is a completed migration. So once you have done with your evaluation, the one previously I had shown, you can start with an actual migration. It is going to take, for my dummy DB took 30 minutes. Of course, for your actual DB, it will be varying. So it goes through all of these phases. For example, if you look at, it initially collects the source information, target information, and then it does certain pre-checks. Okay, it sets up the ZDM on the source, target, some specific directories it creates. And then of course it creates the backup module. And then on the target also it creates. Then again, it performs some validations. It takes full backup of the source. So it pushes to the bucket, and then it takes incremental backup. And then it performs, it goes and on, okay, it then actually configure the data guard. So basically, how do we proceed with an actual migration is, we will initiate a migration with a pause after this particular phase, which means all the steps starting from the beginning until here it will do, and then it will put a pause there. So what happens is, all of these things, okay, it will be done when your source is actually without any downtime. For example, on a particular weekend, you can initiate the migration and put a pause up to here. So the ZDM can actually create a target, okay, as a data guard standby, and then keep it in sync. So that means you are not actually planning to switch over, but except the switch over, everything else for setting up a DG has been done. Then once you have the downtime, you can come back and resume it here. For example, so this way it helps you to save the time from beginning till this particular one. If your database is big, okay, and you feel that it might take more than like 3 hours, 4 hours where you don't have the downtime, then of course you can do a dry run, okay, or you can actually pause up to this phase, so that whatever time has taken, okay, up to this phase doesn't matter to you because your source was online. And then on a particular weekend, when you decide to come back and resume, then on the next phase, it actually reverses the roles of the database. So this is where actually the role reversal happens. And then all of these things are on high level. But then of course, if you go to the log file, you can actually see everything in details. Like I said, okay, what information it is collecting, okay, it is collecting, okay, where is my target, where is my target disk group, okay, what is the target record set, all of those things, everything what the ZDM is doing, all the details steps are okay, whether it is setting up TDE, and while the backup is happening, if you want to get, if you have a 10 terabyte DB, of course it is not going to complete say like 5-10 minutes, right? And you want to keep getting updates about how much is my backup processing. So you by default, this gives the update about every 10 minutes, but of course you can change the frequency, okay, asking give me an update about the backup status every 5 minutes. So all of those detailed information also for the restore, whether it is copying the files, and whether in what phase it is, whether it is restoring the SP file, where it is restoring, all of these things, very detailed information, you can get it from the log file, because it is also very good in case of any failure. If you want to troubleshoot, you can come to this log file and then get it started from there. So that is one place. And of course, you can go to the target alert log, where you get detailed steps of what is being happening, okay, whether recipe file is getting restored, where read log files are getting cleared, all of those things, you can see it from the target alert log also. So that is what I think we wanted to basically cover. Let me go back to the slide. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so now let me come back to the session and see whether we have any outstanding queries there. Okay, so over to Marcus and Robert to get into the Q&A.
Okay, we had some questions like I'm currently answering. There was a question if Golden Gate will be installed on-prem or in OCI. And Golden Gate will be installed via a marketplace image in OCI. There is a scenario, you can also use ZDM to migrate to on-premise systems like Exadata or Exadata Cloud at Customer. In that case, it makes no sense to run the marketplace image in OCI, because you would just send the traffic over OCI back to your data center. And for this scenario, we also have the possibility to run the Golden Gate service as a Docker image. So when you provision the marketplace image, there is a Docker container in it. You can download that Docker image and run it then as a Docker image on-prem. That's possible. But if you migrate to OCI, there is a marketplace image where you can easily spin up the Golden Gate and use that image for zero downtime migration. Then we also had a question about licensing of DataGuard. So DataGuard requires no license, but you need to be aware that DataGuard is a feature of Enterprise Edition. So you can't migrate Standard Edition databases with ZDM in a physical online way. That's only possible for Enterprise Edition.
Okay, thanks, Marcus. Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked there. There was also one question that if there is a licensing needed for Golden Gate. No, there's no licensing needed for Golden Gate. As I said before, there is this marketplace image. And with this marketplace image, there comes a free license when you use it with ZDM for 183 days. So for 6 months, you can use Golden Gate for free. Yeah, I think that's it for the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. So I think we are almost done. Said, you want to add any additional inputs before we can? Back to you, Said. Yeah.
Fantastic overview on database migration methods and the physical and logical migration techniques. And also, I think this is one of the best detailed ZDM physical online migration demos I've ever seen. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate your time. And special thank you to Amalraj, Marcus, and Robert for this presentation. Thank you so much. We hope to see you next time. And thanks again for attending.